Well, the other day, in reading the news, there was a clip of an astronaut in outer space mixing together a cocktail of chemistries, but the result was quite different than what would happen if they were mixed together here at this level on this earth. It kind of reminded me of what happens here, because after meditation it's like we're in outer space. We do become space cadets after meditation, after all. And the stories are like the chemistry that gets mixed together. So I wonder what result we'll get if we mix these two story chemistries together, along with Bonnie's wonderful story. And the first story is the story of a very rich merchant in ancient India. And every time a sadhu or a saint came into town, he would entertain them. He would invite them to his home. He would give them hospitality, a place to sleep for the night. He would take care of their needs and give them food and whatever he perceived that they needed to send them on their way. And then one day, a particularly elevated saint came into town, and the merchant, whose name was Lila, again invited him to his house for a meal and gave him hospitality. And just before the saint was about to retire for the night, the saint said to Lila, "Well, with all of your good deeds, you have earned a place in heaven, and I can take you there." And Lila said, "Well, that is my dearest aspiration. I do hope that one day I will arrive at." "Oh," said the saint, "I can take you there now." And Lila looked a little bit perplexed, and he said, well, I'm a widow. My wife died some years ago, and I have a son who's only 10 years old, so he needs to be taken care of, and he's not old enough to take over my business yet, so I'm not ready." "Oh," said this saint, "well, when do you think you'll be ready?" And Lila said, "Well, my son is 10 years old. It'll probably be 15 years before he's old enough to take over the business." 15 years. "Oh," said the saint, "well, I'll come back in 15 years and take you to heaven." So off went the saint, and 15 years to the day he came back to Lila's house. But outside on the hearth there was a female dog feeding a lot of puppies. She was obviously a guard dog, and when the saint knocked on the door, the servant who had been there before opened the door, recognized him, and said, "Oh, welcome, welcome, it's nice to see you again." And the saint said, "Well, where is your master? Where is Lila?" "Oh," he said, "he passed away with a heart attack 5 years ago. His son is now taken over the business. But welcome, you're welcome, come in." And he was given food as normal and given hospitality. But as the saint was sitting, having his cup of tea and bowl of soup, with his yogic powers, he suddenly realized that the female dog lying on the hearth was Lila, reincarnated. "Oh," said the saint, "it's you." "Oh, yes," said the dog, yes, it's me. When I died, I realized that my son was going to work and there was no one to guard the house, so I decided to come back as a dog and take care of the house." So the saint says, well, I'm ready now, I'll take you to heaven." Oh, no, said Lila. "No, I've got to guard I've got to guard this house. And look, my puppies, they still need me. I've got to feed my puppies. They won't be able to be free for at least a couple of years. Oh, said the saint, all right, I'll come back in a couple of years then. So, a couple of years went by, and the saint came back on the appointed day, and there were 3 children playing in the garden, 1 7, 1 5, and 1 3. And there was no dog there, but all the puppies that had grown up were running around playing with the children. And outside the door of the house hung a cage with a parrot in it. And so the saint knocked on the door, and the door was opened by the same servant. He was welcomed, recognized again. And the saint said, where is the dog? Oh, said the servant, he died fighting off some robbers who were trying to get into the house a year ago. But the puppies have all grown now. But please come in, you're very welcome. But when he was inside, of course, the door was open and the parrot's cage was hanging there. The parrot said, oh, welcome back. Oh, said the saint, it's you, Lila. He said, yes, I did my work as a dog, and so I came back as a bird just to watch over the family, and they love me very, very much. You know, they feed me, the children talk to me and preen my feathers, and well, the saint said, are you ready now? I can take you directly to heaven. And Lila said, oh, thank you, but no thank you. I'm very happy here. The children love me, and they feed me, and they talk to me. And besides, I suddenly had the realization, what would I do if I didn't have a job? What would I do if I didn't have responsibility? So, thank you, but I'd rather remain where I am. And so this saint said, okay. And he never came back to that house again. And then the second story is about how it's told that all of us know when we come into incarnation, even in the womb, that we know what our destiny is going to be. And some, very few, get to know and remember from the beginning. Well, there was such a young man. From the moment that he was in the womb, when he was born, he remembered what his destiny would be. And that was that if he ever married, that he would die on his wedding day from a snake bite. Well, when he was old enough to do so, he told his parents of what it was that he knew. And so they were very careful to protect him. And his brothers got married, but the parents would not allow him, even though he had longing to find a bride to marry. But he wanted to get married. It was a natural thing to get married. His brothers were married. So his parents took him along to a great sage. And the sage said, oh yes, this can be taken care of. He said, on the wedding day, you must cover him with sheepskins, 5 sheepskins, and wrap his feet in sheepskins also. and all will be well. So the wedding day came, and as they were directed, they wrapped him in sheepskins. And as they were riding in the cart to the venue of the wedding, out of a tree under which they passed, a great snake fell and landed on the young man. But when it tried to bite, it was not able to get through the sheepskins. So the marriage took place, and he had a good life. He had children who grew to adulthood. But then his parents died, his sons and daughters died. He was ancient and infirm, but he didn't die. And those who were left were very perplexed. All of the siblings, his children even, had died, but he, although he was ancient and infirm, was still alive. Why didn't he die? So they went back to the ancient sage, and they asked him. And the old sage said, well, I had the same thing happen. But he said, there is a way. If you can remember where the snake which was killed was buried, you must go back and take out that snake's remains, cook it up into a concoction, and give it to the old man to drink. So this was done. The snake's remains were taken up, and a concoction was made. After he drank it, the old man passed away blissfully. So we have these three stories, the chemistries, now mixed together, like the three levels of life that's been spoken of, perhaps. And in this state, paralleled metaphorically with being in outer space, so to speak, what could it be that is created with these three story chemistries? What is it that arises for you, if anything, in the moment now, of what they could have created in mixing them together? Maybe, as we know with this, it can arise in the moment, or it can arise sometime. Could this be like the three levels of life too, bringing together the linear time and the timelessness? But that's a big question. If we bring it down to this level of, in this place, after meditation, being in a state where the mind is overruled by something else, and we mix the chemistry of stories, we know what arises is quite different to what would arise if the stories were mixed we're not in that state. So what is the question again? Anyway, you know what I mean. And do we have to be in this outer space cadet state for all of these three levels of life to be together at all times? Now that's a more down-to-earth question, isn't it? Okay, thank you.